Hey, happy Tuesday morning to you. Welcome back to Morning Musings. My name is Don K. Preston. I'm the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma. We are right back in Revelation chapter 11. I want to jump right into it. I don't want to get sidetracked too terribly much. What I'm doing here, ladies and gentlemen, is demonstrating the parallelism, the correlation between Matthew chapter 25, 31 and following, because let's not forget, this entire study is related to the question, is the Olivet Discourse divided? Pardon me, is it a discussion of the fall of Jerusalem in the first century, and then a discussion of the so-called end of time? By the way, little sidetrack here. It's amazing to me how so many people who have traditionally taught and espoused the concept of the end of time, all of a sudden they've been challenged on the concept, and now they say, well, I don't really believe in the actual end of time because you have the millennium, and then you have the new creation, etc. So I don't really believe in the end of time. Well, they believe in the end of human history. They believe in the end of the current Christian age. So all of a sudden, when the truth of preterism has confronted them with their concepts and with their beliefs, all of a sudden you're seeing this morphing, this transformation of some of the traditional claims about the time of the end and about the so-called end of time. Just the other day on YouTube, this individual says he never uses any term whatsoever that is not found in the Bible. And he says it's wrong. Now, in the first place, I've challenged him repeatedly to give us a source from any work on hermeneutic that says it's wrong to use any word, term, or phrase that's not found in the Bible. I've challenged him repeatedly to give me a text in the Bible that shows that it's wrong to use any word, term, or phrase that's not specifically found in the Bible. And of course, he doesn't even try. It's like people just make up their own arbitrary rules at times because they think it sounds good. Oh, I only speak where the Bible speaks. I only use terms that the Bible teaches. And I'm not making fun, ladies and gentlemen, per se. I am ridiculing the view. Make no mistake. Because that view, that claim, is absolutely false. There's no merit to it whatsoever. But I digress. Got to move on here. Now, yesterday, on Monday, I shared with you the critical, absolutely critical element and fact that we can identify Babylon of Revelation. We can therefore identify the time of the writing of Revelation. And by the way, Lord willing, nothing else happens, I will be posting an article on my website, donkpreston.com, bibleprophecy.com, on the dating of Revelation that you really, really, really need to read. And I'll be posting it on Facebook as well, but it'll be on the front page, obviously. So be looking for that. And in the meantime, I hope the words that I've been sharing with you in Revelation chapter 11 are helpful to you. And if you want an expanded discussion, then go to my website, donkpreston.com, bibleprophecy.com, and look up my book, Who Is This Babylon? And order that book. Send me a note that says you saw the offer on YouTube or Facebook, and I'll refund your shipping. That will save you $5. So, this issue of the two witnesses and the identification of the venue of their ministry and the guilty party of killing them is absolutely critical. That's why I've spent so much time on it. Because, it's so common for people to run here and they run there and they postulate this and they propose that for the dating of the book of Revelation, for the identification of Babylon, and they never deal with the core fundamental issues. what I'm trying to share with you are some issues that basically are beyond dispute. It's kind of like yesterday when I shared with you the fact, I'm going to pick up on it here momentarily, when I picked up on the fact Babylon, the great city in Revelation, is the city that killed the prophets. We're going to go to Revelation chapter 16, verse 6 here momentarily, so you might be turning over there. And I shared with you how Jesus, and by the way, we could have gone to the Old Testament even for that testimony, but nonetheless, how Jesus in Matthew 23, how Stephen in Acts chapter 7, 52 and following, identified Jerusalem as the city that killed the prophets. Now watch this. I want to continue this line of thought because it truly is incredibly important. Paul, writing to the Thessalonians, where he had ministered for a good little while, but was finally run out of town by the Jews persecuting the church, reminded the Thessalonians that they were being persecuted by their Jewish countrymen. And by the way, I've had people try to say, oh, it wasn't the Jews persecuting the church at Thessalonica. It was the Jews' countrymen, as if their countrymen couldn't be Jews. Seriously? You read Acts chapter 17, and you find that's really a crazy, false claim. But Paul reminded them of how their countrymen were persecuting them as they were persecuting the saints in Judea, how they were guilty of killing the prophets of Jesus and the apostles and prophets of Jesus. 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, 14 to 16. Is there any doubt whatsoever who Paul had in mind when he said it was the Jews who had killed the prophets, Jesus, and now we're killing the apostles and prophets of Jesus? So what do we have? We have Jesus identifying Jerusalem as, and by the way, I developed this extensively with tons more documentation in my book, Who is This Babylon? We have Jesus in the book of Matthew and Luke identifying Jerusalem as the city that killed the prophets. And again, more on that in a moment. It was a city that was going to kill him. Matthew 21. And it was a city that was going to kill his apostles and prophets. Luke 23, Luke 11:49, Matthew 23. So here's Jesus. Jerusalem killed the prophets. Would kill him, kill his apostles and prophets. Then Paul, or somewhere around 50-51 AD, said it was the Jews who killed the prophets. They killed Jesus. They killed the apostles and prophets of Jesus. I don't know of anybody that disputes who Jesus was talking about, who Paul was talking about. But then, strangely enough, we come to the book of Revelation, and we have people speculating, well, you know, the two witnesses, that's going to be Moses and Elijah, who are going to be resurrected one of these days and minister in Jerusalem. Well, that violates the temporal delimitations of the book of Revelation, which specifically tells us it was shortly to come to pass. Now, notice, this Jerusalem, or this Babylon in Revelation, kills the two witnesses who are prophets. But in Revelation chapter 16 and verse 6, in describing the impending judgment, the impending imminent judgment. And you see, ladies and gentlemen, this eliminates the view that Revelation was written in the 90s and was predicting the fall of Rome. The fall of Rome was, let's just round it off to good round numbers, the fall of Rome was 400 years away from when John wrote. That is not shortly, that is not quickly, that is not without delay. you have to abuse language to make it apply. And yet at the first of the book, the middle of the book, the last part of the book, guess what? Revelation tells us, no, let me change that. It's the Father who knew the day and the hour of the Lord's coming, who testified to John, these things must shortly come to pass. You think God, the Father, knew what he was talking about when he said these things must shortly come to pass? And look, folks, you can't argue, well, you know, God doesn't see time like we do, because the Father knew the day and the hour. Day and hour. Those are terms that you and I understand. And the Father knew the day and the hour, and he told John these things must shortly come to pass. That term shortly has to be interpreted and defined within the context of shortly come to pass. Because the Father, who knew the day and the hour, is the one who used the terms. So in Revelation chapter 16, we have the description of this impending judgment and destruction of this city Babylon. And the angels cry out in victory, saying, "You are righteous, O Lord, to judge them, because they have shed the blood of your prophets." Now here's something you need to know. The term prophets or the prophets, whether it's an arthrous or with the definite article, appears some 95 times in the New Testament. When the term prophet or the prophets is used without a contextual qualifier. In other words, 1 Corinthians chapter 12, Ephesians chapter 4, talking about prophets being set in the church. Well, those are obviously new covenant prophets, to use that terminology. But when that term, prophets or the prophets, is used without any qualifier, without any contextual identification, it invariably refers, listen to this and catch the power of it, to Old Covenant prophets. It does not refer to prophets in the church. It only refers to Old Covenant prophets. So here is John, who is not giving us any kind of a contextual qualifier. He doesn't say they're the prophets of the Lord, although they're going to be included later on. But it's certainly not just the prophets of the Lord. So here's John using the term prophet without any contextual qualifier, which means he's talking about Old Covenant prophets. So my challenge, I gave you a challenge yesterday. So here's another challenge. If you're going to identify any city as Babylon, other than the city that literally did kill Old Covenant prophets, then you've got to show where that city, whoever you're going to identify, you've got to show that that city killed, martyred Old Covenant prophets. Oh, and just a hint here. No other city killed Old Covenant prophets. That means that Babylon of Revelation was Jerusalem. That means, guess what? The Olivet Discourse is not divided, because Revelation chapter 11 is about the time of the kingdom, just like Matthew chapter 25 is the time of the kingdom, and Revelation 11 is about the destruction of the city that killed the prophets. And it's the time of the rewarding of the prophets of chapter 16, the prophets of chapter 11, the time of the judgment of Matthew 25. At a time, hey, listen, don't forget, order yourself a copy of my book, Who Is This Babylon, and get free shipping, okay? You're going to love it. It may well change your life. I've got more. See you on the flip side.